All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Tuesday afternoon. My name is Nicholas Berkheimer. For those who don't know me, I'm the new technology specialist here at FarmQA. And today, I'm happy to be talking to you about all the data integrations that we offer within the FarmQA software. So a brief overview, we're going to start off by kind of touching on some of the applications that you have for having all of these data and sensor integrations with your FarmQA account. And then we're going to go through some of our bigger data integrations that we have with stuff like the CTS 1000 dynamic cone penetrometer, AquaSpy for looking at your moisture data, weather stations, soil moisture probes, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to show you not only how to get that data into your account, but how you can view it and how you can use that. And then we're going to touch on some other broader data integrations that we have that you can also put in to get this information going in your FarmQA account. As always, please feel free along the way to post questions in the chat. We'll get to those at the end of the webinar. And I have more than enough time to be able to answer any questions that you guys might have for us. So to get started, let's start talking about why we have all these broad data integrations. FarmQA is already a really robust software package where we're able to help you scout, write recommendations, and manage your fields. But we recognize that there are so many more ways that we can help you out than just that. We need to be able to bring in whatever data you might need to manage your farm, whether you're having compaction problems, whether you have irrigation scheduling and you want to know the best way to be able to manage your water resource as well. If you have problems with certain fields and need to get imagery in. There's a lot of things that we understand that you need to be able to do day to day with your farm operation. And we want to be able to help with that. One of the great things about FarmQA is that we are open to really any data integrations that you might have. We're going to cover some big ones today, but if there's something that you might be working with that we haven't touched on, please let us know and we'll gladly work with you to see if we can get that integration working. So now that we kind of have a little bit of a broader idea of what we'll be talking about, I want to start with one of my personal favorite data integrations that we have, and that's with the CTS 1000 probe. Now, this is a dynamic cone penetrometer that you can use to track penetration resistance in your field to look at compaction. What it looks like, as you can see here in this YouTube video, is it's truck mounted and hooked up to the battery of your truck, and it's operated using an Android phone that's hooked up to your FarmQA account. How this works is you'll go out in the field, you'll press a button on your phone, which will look something like on the screen here, and then you'll start taking compaction measurements. As you can see here, while the penetrometer is running, you'll get a real-time compaction reading on your phone. So while you're in the field, you're able to see what your compaction levels are at that spot. You can see here, we get up above that red line. That red bar is 300 PSI, where we start to see plant root growth be restricted. And it looks like we have some kind of plow layer going on here. What's nice too is that all of these points are automatically geolocated so that you don't have to go back and do the dirty work of figuring out where each point was in the field. That's all uploaded automatically to your FarmQA account. So outside of just taking these measurements in the field, this is what it ultimately looks like within your FarmQA account. This is a field where we have approximately 70 cone penetration measurements across the field in a sort of a clustered pattern. Now you see we have both the green and the red markers. The green markers, once you click on them, you'll get the compaction reading within that area. And the green markers show a sample where you did not break that 300 PSI red mark. So ultimately, we're looking at a better area for plant root growth. Now, the red spots, as you'll see here, we did get past that metric. So there is some kind of plow layer or compacted layer that we need to deal with. Now, you don't just get to see everything from right here. You can also go into your soils tab over here on the left, and then go over to soil compaction, and then set your data range for whenever you want to see your data from. All of this is coming from 2020. So we're going to go back, apply that, and now we have access to all of our soil samples here that we can go see that are in our account from that range. Now, to export samples, what you're going to do, we're going to go back to our map. We're going to find our field. And again, we're going to set our date range so that we can access the soil samples that we want. So again, if you're just having issues with this year or something else along those lines, you're able to find where your soil samples are. Let me set it to the correct growing season. Okay, we're good. And then to view your samples, you go into the slide out map pane here on the left, and under points, you turn on compaction readings. And then boom, we have all of our compaction samples back. Now, let's say that I've identified a problem spot in my field. I'm looking at this and I see, okay, this corner, we're having a lot of these red samples, a lot of compaction problems, it looks like. I go back to the slide out map pane. Under compaction readings, I select multiple, and then you just drag on the map to select all the samples that you want. This will then compile all of my samples into this nifty little view right here. Not only am I able to see the ranges, the min and the max for each reading, but also whenever you go hover over a certain depth, what you're seeing here right below the map is the average PSI. So at a depth of 3.5 inches, I'm already hitting an average PSI of 217, which is not necessarily in a great range. Now, not only that, I can go through and look at all my samples. I can see what depth specifically we're breaking that 300 PSI mark. And then ultimately, if I want to do any more operations on this, I can press this export all button, and we're able to download this to an Excel spreadsheet. And we have a depth by depth measurement of each point. We have longitude, latitude, sample time, and the cone index for each of these. Now, the cone penetrometer that we have does take a measurement every 1 centimeter or every 0.39 inches. So you have a robust data set for your CTS 1000 data to go keep track of that. And of course, you can also take a look at your entire field. I'm going to go back here real quick and just give you a brief idea what that looks like. I select multiple again. I corner drag over the whole thing. And this is my entire compaction graph for the whole field. Not as tough as that one spot, but again, we're getting back into the idea more of precision management. And you can look at these individual points where you're starting to have some problems, and you can take a look at those a little bit more closely. That's an idea of our CTS 1000, how that looks like. Let's move on to our next sensor, which is going to be our AquaSpy probe. Now, the AquaSpy is a physical sensor that we use that is, that tracks moisture data. You access this in a very similar way to the CTS from the map pane. I'm going to go out to my full extent, click on the slide out map pane, and I just want to have my AquaSpy sites turned on. So you turn on your AquaSpy sites, and I'm going to scroll out, and then the AquaSpy sites look like these little water dots on the map to have those. Now, what happens when you click on those is you'll get a full moisture reading from you'll get a full historic moisture reading from that site. Just for that point. You can see the blue lines are our irrigation events. When you hover over those, you do see what your irrigation event level is. And then you also see in that black line what your soil moisture level is at each time and how that corresponds with your moisture events. The green lines, the green bar that you see in the middle, that's where you want your soil moisture to be approximately. So you can get an idea of when you might need to irrigate just by looking at this map here. Now, outside of that, you're also able to access this from the settings menu. So what I can do is I can go back into my account. I can go click on settings. And I can go over and I can view all of my sensors here in the sensors tab. Now you can see that right here in this account, I have all of my AquaSpys here. And so then I can click on each sensor and I can get an idea of what's happening with those and do a couple more operations on them. So if I were to click on one of those, I'd be able to see my full historical weather data from the AquaSpy site. One thing about these sensors is that we recommend that if you do realize that you want one of these, you need to get those in sooner rather than later. We don't offer historic data for these. They start recording data once they're installed in the ground. So you're going to want to get those in before you're going to need them ultimately. Now, what's nice too about this is that you can select a current section of this. So if I just want to kind of go like, oh, in early August here, that looks interesting, you're able to get a much closer view and you can see hour by hour what's happening with your moisture content. You can see at the bottom here at the specific time, your soil moisture, your optimal moisture range, and as well as the total water from the irrigation event that you just experienced. So again, this is going to be really good if you have potato growers or any kind of irrigated event. You can use the AquaSpys to be able to get a better idea of when you need to schedule your moisture events and how to manage those fields a little bit better. We also have multiple weather station integrations that we can work with. Now, Some of them are physical weather stations. I can show you how to add those quick. So again, you're going to go back to settings, and the sensors page is not only where all your data is going to live, but this is where you're going to start adding stuff. In the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you see this little plus button. Click on that, and you can either add a new AquaSpy or a weather station. For the AquaSpy, another quick thing to note is that you do need to have the physical AquaSpy before set up in the field before you can add it within FarmQA. And we can go a little bit more into that if you guys want me to, but that's kind of a rough idea of how that works. Then for a weather station, though, you have multiple options. You can have a physical Davis or PESA weather station, or you can add a virtual weather station, which uses our virtual weather service, and we can get an idea of where what the weather conditions are at a specific point on the map that you may want. So if I want to click on virtual weather station, I name it, I select a location, and then I'm able to get weather data at that point. An example that we have pre-set up here, I'm going to go back to my map quick. You can see that we have a weather station set up here in beautiful West Fargo, North Dakota. So I click on the weather station, and this is an idea of our historical weather data over the last couple of weeks ever since we set it up. Again, it's very important to note that with our virtual weather stations, much like a physical sensor where you can't get data in before you actually put the sensor up, you can only get data from weather stations from the time when it's established. So you can see that we established this weather station last week in February, so our entire historical range is just going to be from that point. So if you do realize that you want a weather station set up, it's better to do that sooner rather than later. But we do get a robust data set here. You can see our temperature fluctuations, which unfortunately in Fargo for the last couple of weeks has been really, really cold. You also get idea of wind, precipitation events, and any other severe weather going on. This is another great way that we're able to remotely track weather events. If you have any remote fields that you're concerned about, where you might have gotten high precipitation or a severe storm running through and you need to go out and determine if you need to go scout that for any wind or hail damage, you can set up remote weather stations beforehand for the season, and you can track things that way to, again, to kind of give you an idea if you need to scout or not. And again, all of our weather stations and all of these geomarkers that we have, all of that is accessed over here from this pane by turning on your weather stations. So that is how you can get access to that. So that is an overview of a lot of our more direct ones. I'm going to take a moment now to talk about some of our newer integrations that we have, or some that you might not have noticed within your FarmQA account. One of them that I think is really interesting that gets a little bit overlooked is our integration with the Environmental Protection Agency. So as we're getting into the next growing season, you're going to start to see that your some labels might be changing, or you might have new products that you want to use, and you need to import those into your account before you're able to write them with a recommendation or incorporate them into a mix. So what you do for that is you go over to the Advice tab, and then you go to Products to add a new product into your system. At the very top, you click on New Product, and then instead of just starting a new product or duplicating a previous product, you can click Import from the EPA. Now, we have an integration with the EPA database so that you're able to look up either the name of a product, or you can look up the active ingredients in a product to get those into your account. So I'm just going to click Roundup here. And I have access to all of these different Roundup products that I can add into my account. I'm going to add Roundup Custom Herbicide. Click Add Product. And everything comes preloaded into my system. You can see here on the right-hand side, I have my active ingredients, including the total amount of glyphosate that we have in the product. I have the names all preloaded. And what I really like is that we also have the label easily linked to. So right here, you have access to all that information that we automatically put into your account from the EPA database. As labels change, like we're seeing right now with dicamba, with all of that going on, it can be a pain for you to have to go in and reset those labels or refine those and not have those within your account. Now, you can have those update automatically by going over to Settings, going over to your organization, and then under the Advice column, you can set which regulatory body you want to get information from, Right now, we mostly just go through the EPA, but then by turning on this update product links automatically, what you're able to do is have those updated from the EPA as they update those. That's just one less thing for you to have to worry about as you're dealing with these product labels and all these regulatory issues. Now, below this, we also have an integration with Planet Imagery. Now, what Planet does is they provide daily NDVI imagery and 8-band satellite imagery for fields within your account. You decide how much the acreage you want to pay for. You can see here to the right of the field selected bar at the bottom of the screen. I've selected 994 acres of my 1,000 total acres that I'm paying for, so I have 6 left over. But what that's done is that's gotten me access to imagery for these 8 fields that I already have set up in my account. What this does is that we're able to bring in daily NDVI imagery and, again, satellite imagery, and we're also able to get full 8-band. And what that means is that if we get later in the season, as NDVI becomes less of an apparent metric for crop health, we're able to look at how your late season crop health to kind of get another idea of how your yields are going. So over the course of the season, we're able to give you a full idea of what's happening in your field. A great use case for this is that if you do have some problem fields with certain spots that aren't necessarily producing as much, you're not sure if it's compaction or salinity or even like necessarily where the problem is entirely, you can monitor those with daily Planet imagery. And what's great as well is that you can not only can you load these into map layers to view day in and day out, but you can also incorporate them into our analytics function. Now, what that means is that you can have a metric for NDVI set up, and that will get an average NDVI value for your fields day by day, so that you can kind of keep a track of that over time to get an idea of how your total health is going. So that's our Planet integration that we have as well. Those are most of the integrations that we have directly built in with FarmQA. But something else that I mentioned earlier is that we're open to developing more integrations as time goes on. We want to be able to help you with your problems and answer your questions, whatever that might be. Again, right now we're really focused on our compaction readings, helping you with your moisture stuff and doing these remote sensing operations. But whatever you might have, we're open to having a conversation with you about. Now, I realize I kind of went through that a lot. I went through that rather quickly, and we're running a little bit early here, but that's pretty much what I had for you guys today, talking about our sensor integrations. I'm more than willing to sit around if you guys have any more questions about what FarmQA has to offer or what we can potentially offer you in the future. So with that, I'm going to open up the chat, and are there any questions that you have for me?